the critical point, it becomes human. When a human's consciousness surpasses the critical point, they either become like animals or become immortals or Buddhas. This insight into 0 degrees reveals a law. Regardless of how many years one practices cultivation, if the perfection and transformation of life have not exceeded the critical point, they won't see any qualitative change. Even after tens of thousands of years of cultivation, if one's life evolution remains below the critical point, they will still be the same person. They won't become immortals or Buddhas. Therefore, many cultivators give up halfway because they can't see any results after years of cultivation, feeling discouraged and lost, and they stop practicing. The fundamental reason is that they haven't exceeded the critical point. Perhaps they were just one step away from it, but unfortunately, they didn't persevere, which is regrettable. Fruits fall off when ripe. If the stem doesn't fall, it's because the fruit is still growing. As long as the fruit is still growing, it's not considered ripe, and it hasn't surpassed the critical point. As long as the fruit isn't ripe and hasn't exceeded the critical point, the stem won't fall. Once the fruit ripens, the stem will surely fall. All things hover around the 0 degree point, sometimes below zero, sometimes above zero, constituting the cycle of life and death. If it remains below zero, it's dead. If it stays above zero, it's alive. If it perpetually remains above zero, it lives forever in paradise. Why does the greatest creator reside in the world of 0 degrees? Because the greatest creator is the pivot and origin of all movement and change. All transformations in the nature of life must pass through the greatest creator, the 0 degree point. Without passing through the greatest creator, the nature of life cannot undergo any changes. This is why we must reverence cold storage door at the headquarters of Life-Genuine in Canada was difficult to open and close. It seemed that the ground was rising. With every rise, it blocked the door's movement. So, I filed the bricks on the ground multiple times. Each filing made the door slightly easier to open, although it still remained stiff. I even decided to call in professionals from a refrigeration company to address the issue. Not long ago, my son came to my place. I explained the problem with the cold storage door to him and asked if he could solve it. After carefully observing the situation, he proceeded to inspect the basement. He proposed 2 solutions. One was to remove all the floor tiles under the cold storage door and lower the height of the wooden boards underneath, while the other was to address the humidity problem in the basement. He found that the reason the floor tiles under the cold storage door had risen was due to excessive basement humidity. This humidity caused the wood beneath the tiles to swell. When I asked which solution could permanently solve the problem, he said it would be best to address the root cause by thoroughly resolving the high humidity in the basement. Otherwise, the problem would persist in the long term. It's worth noting here that the Life-Genuine headquarters in Canada is constructed entirely of wood. Now that the root of the problem was identified and removing the firewood from under the cauldron was the best solution to permanently resolve the issue, I decided to eliminate the high humidity in the basement. So, I sent my son to town to buy a dehumidifier. After the dehumidifier ran for 24 hours, the cold storage door became much easier to operate. 3 days later, the cold storage door was opening and closing smoothly. The phenomenon with the cold storage door led to an insight. Pulling out the firewood from under the cauldron is the lowest cost path to solving problems. For example, in various marital difficulties, these problems have persisted for thousands of years without resolution, despite attempts to address them through moral, ethical, social, or emotional teachings and constraints. In such cases, the most cost-effective way to eliminate marital problems is simply not to get married. As the saying goes, it is easy to have good relationships with everyone if we do not ask any favor from them. I would not care about the price of wine if I did not drink it. I don't drink, therefore, whether a bottle of Maudai sells for 300 or 30,000, I couldn't care less. Similarly, if someone feels that being a civil servant is restrictive and leads to poor relationships, the best way to address this annoyance is not to become a civil servant but to start a business. Likewise, if someone feels that the United States is not good or safe, the solution is simple: leave the United States. If a company is plagued with numerous problems and the common people are struggling, the best way to address this issue is not to establish various regulations and legal provisions, nor is it to rely on moral teachings and various expert opinions to deceive people, and certainly not to increase punishment and fire more people. Instead, it is to directly replace the leader. History has proven that the leader is the core guarantee of the people's happiness and social stability. If this core is not functioning, replacing it will lead to a complete transformation at the lowest cost. So, what is the lowest cost path to becoming celestial beings? The answer is eliminating selfishness and ego. Without removing selfish desires and ego attachment, the path to becoming celestial beings becomes unreachable. 天才之路 The Path of Genius 写法 September 12, 2022 Translation edited by Chinyo. Elon Musk is undoubtedly a genius. Had Elon Musk remained in South Africa, would he have attained his current achievements? Unlikely, as South Africa lacks the nurturing environment necessary for such genius to thrive. Suppose Elon Musk were Chinese and lived in China. Would he dare to propose plans like colonizing Mars and creating the Starlink project? No, he wouldn't. At this point, he might have already been confined to a mental institution. The fact tells us that geniuses exist everywhere, but without the right environment and nurturing soil for growth, all geniuses will become waste. Therefore, finding the suitable soil and environment for one's growth is the primary choice on the path of genius. Christopher Columbus, who is credited with discovering the New World, was undoubtedly also a genius. Suppose Columbus's wife were still alive at the time. Would Columbus still dare to venture out to sea? The responsibility of providing for the family alone is demanding. How could one then find the time or inclination to embark on a perilous voyage? Additionally, supposing his wife possessed a narrow-minded and jealous nature, would she agree to his maritime adventures? She might ask, "Don't you love me anymore? Are you already planning to abandon me for another woman? How will I and the children survive if you don't return?" No, absolutely not. I refuse to let you go on a sea expedition. An unreasonable wife might assert, as long as I'm alive, you'll remain at home and not go anywhere. I firmly believe that marriage and family bury half of the world's geniuses. Therefore, the second rule on the path of genius is not to be bound by trivial matters and mundane people. Hua Tuo, Li Shizhen, Bian Ke, Sun Simiao, Zhang Zhongjing, and others are undoubtedly medical geniuses. Suppose these famous doctors lived in today's China. They would be considered quacks. They would have either been detained on charges of practicing medicine without a license or forced to give up their medical practice. This means that for geniuses to fully utilize their innate talents, the timing of birth and growth must be appropriate, as even exotic flowers cannot survive in winter. In summary, soil, environment, freedom, and fortune are the path of genius, and none of these four elements can be lacking. This suggests that for every 10 geniuses, 9 go unrecognized or wasted. Without the appropriate soil and environment, geniuses will perish. Without a free living environment, geniuses cannot fulfill their ambitions, and unfavorable timing of birth and growth will suppress and oppress geniuses. People who can become celestial beings or Buddhas must be geniuses. Otherwise, how could they possess such high spirituality and perseverance? Since only geniuses can become celestial beings or Buddhas, the path to becoming a celestial being or a Buddha must also follow the path of genius, which includes suitable soil and environment, freedom to express one's personality and talents, and opportune timing. Therefore, to become a celestial being or Buddha, one must first seek and choose the soil and environment that can lead to celestial being and Buddha. Secondly, one must break free from all constraints on one's freedom. As for fortune, it is something beyond one's control. One can only leave it to fate. 门缝的启示 The revelation of the door gap. 写法 December 21st, 2022. Translation edited by Chinyo. Is there a gap between the door and the door frame? Even if the door fits snugly into the frame, there will still be a gap. When the temperature inside and outside the room is not significantly different, standing inside by the door, one may not feel any gap at all. However, when there is a substantial temperature difference between the inside and outside, standing by the door inside, one can feel the biting cold wind rushing in through the gap like a powerful stream of air. With the outside temperature below -30 degrees Celsius and the inside temperature around 15 to 16 degrees Celsius, even though there is no wind blowing outside, the huge temperature difference between inside and outside causes the cold air outside to rush in through the door gap like a hurricane. A pinhole-sized hole is not noticeable most of the time, but when there is a significant temperature difference between inside and outside, one can feel a continuous jet of cold air entering through the pinhole. This gives us some insight. Even between two people who are very close, there are still gaps. When the demands of two people are significant and cannot be satisfied by each other, cold air will enter through the gap. This is probably the fundamental reason why extramarital affairs continue to occur, let alone when the relationship between two people is not very intimate. The same applies to relationships between friends. When the temperature difference between them is not significant, friends can support each other through thick and thin. However, once the temperature difference increases, betrayal becomes inevitable. From this, we can draw a conclusion. In all relationships, whether between nations, individuals, or between humans and society or nature, harmony will prevail only by maintaining a balance of temperature between each other. Once the balance is disrupted, conflicts and disputes will arise. The greater the temperature difference, the greater the destructive power and severity of disasters. For example, in a husband-wife relationship, if both partners have similar abilities and there are no significant income disparities, the relationship is generally stable. However, once one party's abilities and income far exceed the others, there will be significant gaps in the marital relationship, and divorce may occur at any time when conditions are ripe. Similarly, in the relationships between nations, why are the relations between countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, Australia, New Zealand, and Canada relatively close and strong, while countries like China, Russia, Iran, North Korea, Cuba, and Venezuela can come together in special circumstances? The reason is that the temperature difference between them is not significant. Once the temperature difference is stark, cold wars and hot wars become inevitable. This further suggests that to maintain harmonious and intimate relationships with others, the first step is to maintain a basic balance of temperature between each other. For peace and prosperity in the world, countries need to interact with each other and avoid isolationism. To prevent extreme cold, heat waves, droughts, and floods in nature, humans must maintain a balance with nature, and human exploitation of nature must not exceed the limits it can bear. Once exceeded, extreme heat, extreme cold, droughts, floods, and various viruses will emerge and wreak havoc. 利益越高，路越宽. The higher the aspiration, the wider the path. Xiefeng. October 20th, 2023. Translation edited by Chinyo. In places where competition is fierce, survival conditions become harsher and relationships between people become more tense, making the acquisition of survival resources more brutal. The simpler and easier the pathway to obtain survival resources, the more intense the competition becomes. For a job that anyone can do, the more sought after it becomes, the fiercer the competition. For a job that only 1 in 10 people can do, the competition is relatively less fierce. Then, for a job that only 1 in 100, 1,000, a million, or a billion people can do, we find that the fewer people who can do it, the less competitive it is because there are not many people competing with oneself. For example, a surface coal mining company recruiting miners will attract many applicants. However, the Mariana Trench Exploration Company, due to the high difficulty involved, would likely struggle to find more than a few suitable candidates worldwide. A government unit recruiting civil servants, hiring 10 of them, may attract hundreds or thousands of applicants, making the competition fierce. But if Elon Musk is recruiting someone capable of controlling the global nuclear weapons button to prevent nuclear-armed countries from launching nuclear weapons, probably only very few people can be found in the world at present. In 1997, I went to the Harare labor market to recruit a male flower worker and a female worker for laundry, cleaning, and hygiene. When the car arrived at the market, before I could even get out of the car, many people surrounded it. There were many people who wanted to do flower work and household chores. Later, when I went to the market to recruit shop assistants, the situation was the same. Then, when I opened a bar and tried to recruit a bartender, there were very few suitable candidates. Later, when I opened a nightclub and tried to recruit a DJ mixer, I couldn't find one. I had to hire a DJ mixer instead. From this, we discovered a small secret, which is that if you want to find a job with low competition and high income in society, you must have special talents and be different from others. Without putting in effort and undergoing rigorous training during our upbringing, we can only compete with many others for our livelihood. This involves the question of the meaning of life. That is, from an early age, we must consider what kind of work or career to engage in. Each person has 24 hours a day, and where we allocate our time and energy is a major factor in whether we will be happy or not in our lives. Now, there are thousands of job types in front of us. Which one will you choose? For example, shining shoes, making shoes, repairing shoes, herding sheep, herding horses, farming, gardening, being a shop assistant, a police officer, a taxi driver, a delivery person, a grocery store manager, a restaurant owner, a teacher, a civil servant, a worker, a soldier, a workshop technician, an engineer, a professor, a painter, a doctor, a lawyer, a judge, a musician, a performer, an entrepreneur, a writer, and so on. We find that the faster the income comes, the simpler and more accessible the job is, and the more people can do it, the more intense the competition will be. For example, shining shoes on the street can bring income on the same day. Working as a laborer, a teacher, or a civil servant can bring income in the same month, and farming and gardening can bring income in the same season. However, to become a professor, an engineer, or an entrepreneur requires upfront investment, effort, and more investment. In conclusion, to avoid fierce competition and maximize income, one must first invest. The longer the investment period, the fewer competitors there will be, and the greater the benefits will be. At this point, we find that due to the need for survival or the pressure of survival, most people have given up investing and turned to seeking quick profits. They go where they can make money quickly and engage in work that can bring immediate gains. As a result, the number of elite individuals in all walks of life is decreasing, while outstanding individuals are becoming fewer and fewer, and the number of ordinary people is increasing. Everyone is familiar with the story of Mencius' mother moving 3 times. Why did Mencius' mother move 3 times? It was actually for her son's aspiration. In the end, because of his high aspirations, Mencius became a great thinker who has been passed down through the ages. The higher the aspiration, the more one must endure long-term solitary struggles. One must endure rigorous training and withstand the temptations of money, power, fame, and beauty. Additionally, one must persevere in focusing one's mind and spirit on one's ideals. Finally, one must invest one's time and energy in one's own career. Do not be hasty for quick success. Those who are hasty for quick success will never become outstanding figures. So, what is the highest aspiration? Whether it is herding sheep, shining shoes, farming, or becoming a professor, a doctor, or a financier, the ultimate result is death. It's considered good to live safely until the age of 70 or 80, thinking about life's brevity, tossing around, and eventually becoming a handful of ashes in a bone ash box, thinking of such an end, all hopes are dashed. Therefore, we find that becoming a celestial being is the highest aspiration in life. Not only can one enjoy the joys of life to the fullest, but there is also a wonderful future ahead. Do you want to become a celestial being? 来世部落帝王家的启示 The revelation of not born into a royal family in the next life. By Xiefeng. November 25, 2023. Translation edited by Chinyo. Looking through history, countless individuals born into royal families have met tragic fates, with many facing massacres or even complete annihilation. Even those who ascend to the throne, how many of them meet peaceful ends? Fathers and sons vie for power. Family members turn against each other, and siblings are torn apart. Once ousted from power, those associated with the emperor are often massacred. If they are imprisoned or exiled instead of being completely slaughtered, it could be seen as a result of past blessings. Not only do those born into royal families suffer, but individuals born in war-torn regions also face hardships. Moreover, being born into a certain family can lead to being implicated and even result in the massacre of staff and servants. Similarly, joining a particular organization, be it a political party, religious group, or organized crime syndicate, can lead to dire consequences if it falls from grace, with imprisonment being inevitable. In places where power struggles are fierce, standing with the wrong person or joining the wrong side can have dreadful consequences. Throughout history, soldiers from both sides have shed blood in battles. But have we ever considered that these soldiers are beloved children of mothers, cherished husbands of wives, and respected fathers of children? Why do they engage in mutual slaughter? There is a tale of a criminal who complained to the greatest creator when the ship he was on sank, saying, "Why, to punish just me, did you have to drown over 200 people?" A distant voice from the heavens responded, "It wasn't an easy task to gather over 200 people who were destined to perish, was it?" During an earthquake, tens of thousands, even hundreds of thousands, may perish in an instant. A flood can separate the living from the dead in a village within moments. An airplane crash can cause hundreds of people to vanish without a trace in an instant. Timing, luck, destiny. What do these phenomena teach us? Beneath the glory of power lurk invisible dangers and threats of violence. Beneath the glimmer of wealth hide endless servility and misery. Underneath the extravagance of pleasure lie numerous tears of helplessness and lurking crises. Underneath the allure of beauty lies endless bitterness, endurance, and looming danger. Beneath the radiance of fame hide indescribable impurities and corruption. Beneath the clamor of excitement lie countless disasters, misfortunes, and despair. These give us some insights into how to live our lives. Do not be misled by surface glamour, honor, and wealth. Do not walk towards power, status, wealth, fame, beauty, or excitement. For those who do, inevitable strife and misfortune await. The reverse is the movement of Tao. Walk towards places where crowds are sparse, towards auspiciousness and brightness, towards simplicity and tranquility, towards joy, happiness, freedom, and bliss, towards the path of nature. By doing so, you can minimize disasters and unexpected blows. So, where do you intend to be born in the next life? 摄像头的启示 The Revelation of the Camera by Xiefeng. February 20th, 2024. Translation edited by Chinyu. In this era, no matter where you go, there is likely a camera watching you, recording everything you do. This is especially true in important places like banks, jewelry stores, airports, and stations. But don't forget, many homes and even hotel rooms are monitored by cameras. Sometimes it's unimaginable that someone might secretly install a camera in your bedroom to record everything. This phenomenon tells us that no matter where we go, whether there is a camera or not, we must be prepared for the possibility of being watched by countless cameras. We must behave honestly and decently, otherwise, our actions may be captured by others and become irrefutable evidence for blackmail. What does this phenomenon reveal to us? It reveals to us that the sky has eyes, the earth has eyes, everyone has a pair of eyes, there are gods 3 feet above our heads, there is a space called retention information space in the 36-dimensional spaces. This space tells us that everything in the universe is a camera. Our daily words and deeds are meticulously recorded by the retention information space. As long as the universe exists, everything from our past, including a few years ago, hundreds of years ago, thousands of years ago, tens of thousands of years ago, hundreds of millions of years ago, is fully recorded, not in photo form, but in documentary form. Many people see their past like watching a serial drama after being hypnotized. Therefore, never do evil. Never have the mentality that if I do this, no one will know, especially when you are alone. Don't think that no one knows what you do. The actual situation is that heaven knows, earth knows, the greatest creator knows, everything knows. So don't sneak around doing bad things. You can't escape the law. Now let's think about another question. Does anyone know every thought in our hearts? Before we get this answer, let's think about whether anyone will know every word we type on our computer and mobile phone. The truth is, as long as our computers and mobile phones are connected to the internet, no matter what content we type on our computers and mobile phones, the network terminal knows and even records it. We know that every person is connected to the entire universe, so we know that the universe knows all our thoughts and ideas, and they are all recorded. How can the universe know our thoughts and ideas? How does it know our inner activities? It turns out that all our thoughts and activities in our hearts will turn into a frequency wave and be emitted into the universe, and our biological wave color will also change with our inner activities. Even our expressions, emotions, and postures will change with our inner activities. How can the universe not know? The universe knows everything means that Tao will record everything that has happened and is happening in the universe. This means that the greatest creator knows everything. Our every little bit, including inner activities, can't escape the greatest creator's eyes and ears. So we understand the reason why miracles appear when we cry out to the greatest creator for help in times of crisis. We will understand the value and significance of praying or confessing to the greatest creator. So we further understand that our current life situation is all caused by our past words and deeds and all the activities in our hearts. Everything is just right. There is no favoritism and injustice. So we understand how to live this life, understand which path to take in life. Tianqi Pian, Tianqi Pian Qian Yan. Preface to the chapter on Revelations by Xiefeng. The spirit, Tao, of the greatest creator and the universe are inseparable, just as the earth and life are intertwined. The human body's organs, blood and marrow, sensory organs, hair, and consciousness are also interconnected as a whole. The greatest creator has never engaged in direct conversations with any individual in human-created languages. However, this does not mean that the greatest creator is distant from humanity. The greatest creator is constantly in dialogue with humans, but the form of communication is not through our human languages. Instead, it occurs through the language of the greatest creator. All things in the natural world are the language of the greatest creator, and all phenomena in nature are the utterances of the greatest creator. The sun, moon, stars, rivers, lakes, oceans, wind, clouds, rain, snow, humans, animals, birds, insects, trees, flowers, mountains, rocks, and the earth itself are all the language of the greatest creator. The movements of celestial bodies, the rushing of rivers, the roaring of the sea, the changing of weather, the falling of rain and snow, the shifting of seasons, the growth and decline of living beings, including the chirping of insects, the calls of birds, the shouts of humans, the neighing of horses, earthquakes, floods, thunderstorms, and lightning are all the speech of the greatest creator. Everything that humans perceive through their eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and body is the language and speech of the greatest creator. To understand the language of the greatest creator and comprehend his speech, one cannot rely solely on sight, hearing, smell, taste, and touch. It requires spiritual perception, but spiritual perception alone is not enough. Wisdom is also necessary. Without spiritual perception, we will never understand the language and speech of the greatest creator, and without wisdom, we will never grasp what the greatest creator is saying. Having spiritual perception alone without wisdom, we can only sense the presence of the greatest creator but cannot accurately understand the workings of the greatest creator's spirit, Tao. In other words, we may only know that we are destined to live and destined to die, but we are unclear about the reasons why we exist and why we must face death. This is referred to as knowing the what, but not knowing the why. Having wisdom alone without spiritual perception, we cannot truly perceive the existence of the greatest creator. We can only rely on accumulated human knowledge, experience, lessons, rigorous logical reasoning, and scientific experiments to uncover some mysteries of the universe, nature, and life. In other words, we may understand why we live and why we die, but we cannot comprehend the ultimate reasons behind the necessity of life and death. This is referred to as knowing the why, but not knowing the what. With the exception of a very small number of individuals who possess both spiritual perception and wisdom, generally speaking, religious figures have spiritual perception but lack wisdom, while scientists have wisdom but lack spiritual perception. The majority of the general population, who fall between these two categories, lack both spiritual perception and wisdom. They merely exist blindly, living their lives without a clear sense of purpose. The chapter of Revelations is the divine revelation given to me by the greatest creator. Before completing the chapters on unconventional thinking, the greatest creator, universe, time and space, Jesus warned me, "Do not give holy things to dogs, nor cast pearls before swine." Swine. The Buddha enlightened me. Speak for the Mahayana practitioners. The spirit of Laozi advised me, Tao, when obtained by a noble person, becomes the foundation of their self-cultivation, while when obtained by a petty person, it is treated lightly and without reverence for life. What should I do? I must heed the admonitions of gods, Buddhas, and immortals. However, in the vast sea of humanity, it is impractical for me to individually seek out noble individuals who practice the Mahayana path. Moreover, time is limited, and I don't have much time to patiently guide each person. Therefore, I have no choice but to follow the doctrine of the mean and adopt a middle path. I will conceal the mysteries and secrets beneath the surface of phenomena, only hinting at them. This way, those who possess spirituality and wisdom can see beyond the surface, transcend the vastness, and more easily discover the gems and gold beneath the earth's surface. As for the rest of the people, They will be like what Jesus said, though seeing, they do not see. Though hearing, they do not hear or understand. In addition to Revelations and the other mentioned chapters, there is another chapter in Life of Genuine called the Preaching of the Tao. This chapter is entirely different from the Tao Te Ching, and it can be said without exaggeration that the wisdom contained in the preaching of the Tao far surpasses that of the Tao Te Ching. For instance, when it comes to beings who are destined for or already in hell, Jesus' attitude is, lest they repent and be forgiven. On the other hand, in Buddhism, Bodhisattva Ksitigarbha vows, I vow to save all sentient beings in the world, and I will not enter the Elysium world until hell is empty. Who is right and who is wrong? Whose guidance should we ultimately follow? Preaching of the Tao specifically addresses such challenging questions. However, the timing is not ripe at the moment. Only when Life of Genuine is widely accepted by all human beings can preaching of the Tao be shared openly. It is similar to constructing a building where exquisite chandeliers cannot be hung until the main structure is completed. Laozi said, when the highest type of followers hears Tao, the truth, they try hard to live in accordance with it. When mediocre types hear Tao, they seem to be aware and yet unaware of it. When the lowest types hear Tao, they break into loud laughter. If it is not laughed at, it is not Tao. Regarding the chapter of Revelations, those who understand will discern its true essence, while those who do not will merely spectate. Apart from that,